tell me your story.
Yeah, so I'm from Minnesota, born and raised. My dad used to announce college hockey games, and so like I played hockey growing up. Was going to do hockey in college, hurt my knee, and then like the next week after tryouts, I was like, oh, start doing an internship at the radio station. 17, like start doing an internship at the sports station. The sports station is happening to not be hiring. So Dave Ryan, the morning show, was hiring. So I was 17, everybody else is like 22, and like, what the hell was I doing? I mean, just so green, but I knew like in the beginning, I was like, I need to separate myself because I was like the older group was like a pack and like I was by myself. So I'm like, I need to separate myself. So I printed out baseball cards, like Intern John baseball cards on crappy ass color printer, like at home ink, and then hand them out at events. I'm like, well, like, I'm like, nobody's going to keep this shit, but like, maybe Dave will put me on the air for it. And that's how I got my first break on the air. So the cool thing about Dave Ryan, who's been on KWB for 25 years, is like, I would see like, what can I do to get his attention? And like, that's how I was like, okay, if I keep on doing stuff like this, like I'll get my chance. And like, from there, was there for 4 years, got my degree in marketing. And then I was like, it's probably time to go elsewhere. So did nights in Des Moines for 11 months, nights, music director, imaging director, website, typical like small market Des Moines, do it all, which was dope though. Like I always say like, small market is the best place to do stuff. Cause it's like, it's not that they don't care, but it's like, there's not as many eyeballs on you to like, what are you doing? So I got to do everything and throw stuff against the wall, and then moved to DC. It'd be 9 years in October. And then I was on the Kane show for 8 of those years, took over. I got my own show now it was a year in April. So that's like the quick radio pedigree.
And now, did the comedy stuff come first, or did the podcast come first?
So the comedy story is so stupid. The first story is like, I met Pete Davidson through Charlemagne, who hosts the Breakfast Club in New York, has been like a mentor for me for like the last 8 years. And I saw Pete do stand-up once, and I said to Pete, I'm like, hey, do you think I could do stand-up? And like, such a stupid thing to ask, like, in hindsight, like, he's Pete Davidson, like, he's really good. And Pete paused and goes, you're a really good guy. And like, I took that as enough. I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna do stand-up one day. And then it just worked out where I had a friend serving in the Army who was diagnosed with cancer, and her family had to stay in a Fisher House when she was getting work done in San Antonio. And I'm like, what's the Fisher House? And they have like these houses on various military bases across the country. So if like for my friend, they flew out her family and they put them up in a place to stay for the entire chemo, which was huge because otherwise flights from DC to San Antonio is like expensive. So I was like, I'm going to do stand-up comedy to raise money for Fisher House. And that was 5 years ago. I thought it'd be like a show. And I remember when the show on sale, I'm like, Christ, please just sell some tickets. And it sold out. And I was like, oh, okay, like this is cool. So we had a second show and that sold out. And then I was like, all right, maybe we'll go on the road. So we did 2 shows in Harrisburg and that sold out. And then it was like a couple months. I'm like, man, I wonder if I could just like book a tour. Like a business major, ran my college radio station. Like, I bet you I could just call venues. So I routed the tour myself. And been doing that this will be number 4. We're trying to get to $50,000 raised this year, which will be the goal. So that's it's wild.
Wow.
Like, it only happens because like the listeners buy tickets. It's not because I comedy wise deserve to be on there, but it's because like the listeners just made the connection to the story and want to help the charity out. So it's a very cool experience. But if you're one of those people that's like, oh, radio is dead, you just don't get it. It's like, well, then you're missing out on this because I don't belong here. So I think the podcast, first of all, the podcast thing, radio, it's so funny. I mentioned this at boot camp. It's like radio created the podcast. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, it's the most wild thing. We're like, podcasts. It's like, yeah, like, because radio shows like Dave, when I started 14 years ago, were taking War of the Roses and putting them online. And it's just like, to me, that's just a whole side note where it's like, idiots. Like,
thank you.
We made this. It's like TV networks been like, you guys hear about this on-demand thing? It's like, yeah, right. Your shows are on demand. Anyway, that's another thing entirely.
No, I love that.
It's just like, okay, yeah. So like 5 years ago, so I was like, I need to start getting, because I wasn't an idiot. It's like there wasn't like the opportunities to have like your own morning show in a smaller market. I saw 5 years ago, like that just wasn't happening. And I was on a show that was syndicated. And I was like, well, we're syndicated markets that like could be a local show, but probably ain't gonna happen. So I started the podcast like 5 years ago, and it took me a while to figure out what I was doing. It was first just to like get experience hosting, get experience like planning a show and teasing and like get the flow down. And then my co-host, Shelby Sauce, she was a situation in DC where we're a union. So you have to be in the union to be on the air. That's a whole nother whatever. So Sauce wasn't able to get any on-air experience. And I was like, well, this is kind of dope. Like, why don't you do the podcast with me? That way you can get like an air check and I can get experience hosting. And so we did that. So we started probably 2.5 years ago, like for real. So maybe the podcast started 4 years ago, but it really started when Sauce got on. Like that's when it got good. So it was a lot of trial and error of like figuring out how to bounce off a co-host. And that to me, that experience was invaluable because now that I host a show, it's like so much of hosting is like, it's almost like when you do stand up, I tell people it's like when I did the first joke, like my ears were listening to like the reaction of the crowd. My head was editing jokes in the future. My mouth was saying the current joke. It's like three things happening at once. And that's when I was like, oh, this is probably why I have ADD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I realized like with like the podcast helped me realize like when you're hosting, it's like if we're doing a show, like I'm asking you a question, I'm listening to your response, but I'm already thinking of where we're going to go next and like checking the text lines. So like that experience with the podcast made it easier to step into the show. And so, I mean, we've had the success in the podcast is wild. We hit 2 million views and listens like a month ago, I think, which is dope. I always tell people don't even bother looking at the numbers. It's not even like, it's just going to make you sad. And like, had I looked at the numbers for the first 2 years, it wouldn't have been worth it. But like, it was more so like going to the gym and getting reps. And then especially now, like the podcast thing, it's like, everybody's like, I should start a podcast. I'm like, but should you though? Like, I'm not gonna be like, but it's like podcast has become what having a SoundCloud was 5 years ago. So it's like, if you really love it and want to do it with me and Sauce, like it worked out great. Like for her getting the experience and me getting the experience and like bouncing stuff off, it worked out really well. And I guess the thing for us is like, even if we had 10 listens, it'd still be a priority and still be as fun as it is. Yeah. And Sauce now is the thing where it's like, I knew the shitty thing and I saw it happen. Here's another rant, but it's true. I knew if we ever dated, people would say she only got to where she was because she was sleeping with me. And surprisingly, it happened. And surprisingly, it wasn't dudes that said it. It was women. And can I just say, I was like, these were the same women who are like, we got to support each other in radio. And they're doing the Women's March legitimately. I'm like, you're the problem. Oh, you're the problem. Like dudes do enough to hold back women, but like, dude, you're like, this girl drives an hour one way to work for free to go to work. And she didn't get her chances because she worked hard. It has to be because she must have slept with somebody to get there. Dude, you're the problem. I think it's the same on whatever argument you find in life. The ones that are most vocal, you shouldn't trust regardless. But that to me I was floored. And I was like, like for me, it's like the amount of, this isn't getting in too much stuff. Like I'm very like stay to myself, do my own work and gun. The amount of like alleged hookups I've had that radio station. I mean, God. I'm jealous of me. It's just like, I mean, so for me, I was like, whatever. But for her, I was like, like people believe that shit. Like she actually just worked hard. And like, it's the same people on radio where it's like, well, he must have gotten to where he is. Cause like, no idiot. Like I put the work in that. So that to me was just like I was dumbfounded. And I was like, thank God we never actually did date because then the poor girl wouldn't get a chance. We're on episode 555, I think. Like, when podcasts take a week off and it's like, we just never did that. And it's like, we just kept grinding and posting on all social media. It's a pain in the ass. It's like, the recording of the podcast is fun to push and record. The rest of it, it's a pain in the ass.
It is.
It just is. And it's like, and to even do it well. So for me, I think like, there's some people like, how do you get a show? It's like the podcast is a great way to start for that, to solely just to like tune your craft. And then you have audio. Cause that's the thing with like jobs. It's like, well, you need to have 5 years on air experience. Like, well, that doesn't exist. So like, that's the best way I think to make a dent is like to make it something where you can it's just building the resume, building the air check. I think we've all realized it's like, if you think you're just going to do radio, it ain't gonna happen. Like the days of like, I'm just going to do a shift. It's like, nah, fam, like you have to be able to do the whole thing. Otherwise, like if you just do radio, there's somebody else who may not be as talented as you, but they also do social media, photo editing, video editing. It's like, I'm going to take that person over you because they do more. Exactly.
When you guys were on the morning show boot camp last year, when you were like, saying like that, we're all kind of in the same business and that we should support each other, even if it's just a Facebook like a shit like that I was like, okay, I like that guy. So I was like, I need to talk to him.
Oh my God. No, but that's like, the like thing to me is just like the easiest thing ever, where it's like, if you're in radio, you get the damn every army that tweets you 5 million times for BTS or Nicki Minaj. It's like, in radio, if I follow 50 radio people, like I said in boot camp, it's like, and I know they're posting an ad for something, I know in their soul they don't want to post that ad. I know, like, deep down it destroys them, and they know. And unless you get a really good salesperson that gets it, but if it's like, if I'm doing an ad for Sagamore, and I love Sagamore, by the way, and they're like, just post this logo, it's going to do well. It's like, and they have like, no, it's not. Like, but you see other radio people do that. I'm like, the least you can do is like it. So like, it's like, if I follow 50 radio people, I should expect like at least 35 likes on an ad post, where it's like, like that's the difference between going from like 175 likes on something to 200, which to a client is a huge thing. And to me, it's like, why are we not doing that? We can like rig the system to make it seem like stuff's bigger than it is. And what does it cost me? Like, me double clicking, I'm going to forget about it 2 minutes later. Do you know what I mean?
You're already like scrolling anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. And I like how you've touched about this in the podcast. I think that's why the radio fam is so important, where it's like, everybody in radio thinks that their job is the only one that sucks. Fam, every job sucks. Yeah. Like, I wake up every morning, I'm not like, hell yeah, like I have it made. I'm like, the same problems that you're having in Albuquerque, that you're having in Waterloo, they're having in New York, they're having in LA, they're having everywhere. So that's why I think like the idea of like a radio fam is huge, because like we're all going through the same shit, just at different buildings. Like it's like, I promise you, it's the exact same shit no matter where you are. My life isn't perfect. It's, you know what I mean? So that's why I try to tell young people, it's just like, God, I feel old as balls saying young people, but like, I feel like the in comedy they call it like your class they come up with, like, so I guess the radio class, well, I mean, it's like, it's not, it doesn't, there's, if you think that it's gonna like, you're gonna get to like that level, and then it's like you've reached like Mecca, it's like you're gonna be sadly mistaken, because it just isn't that. Listen to the podcast you had about like, starting this whole thing, and it was like, you said like, find your ideal situation, not your ideal job. And I was like, damn, like that's some deep shit. That's gotta be a poster. You know what I mean? I think it's like, I do like, I coach high school hockey, which is dope. And I think like, if my whole life was just radio, I'd be a miserable person. But radio affords me the opportunity to do the podcast, to do TV stuff, to do stand-up comedy, to coach hockey. Like, so it's like, what other job would I have where I'd have the freedom to do that?
And I think the biggest thing too is that, as we've talked about in some of the episodes too, that if you were to lose your job, that you at least have a presence, you have a brand, you have listeners, like you can just move them between platforms.
Yeah. It's like when people are like surprised at your success, and like, I'm very humbled by it, but like, I also responded to every comment for 8 years, responded to every single DM for 8 years. Like the meet and greets of the comedy show, like some people don't do, like I do a meet and greet for everybody. So like, I'm standing for like 2 hours, some shows, meeting everybody. And like, it's like, I've built that, and not that like, it's what you should do. Like, I always think like, I met Taylor Swift once, I'm sure she remembers. And, I'm kidding, she doesn't, but she wrote a thank you note that's like, John, thank you so much for coming to the show. It was great seeing you, Taylor. And like, obviously somebody told her like, hey, you met, but I was like, yeah, but that's going to last forever. Like that, like I'm telling the story. That was 7 years ago. It's like, if Taylor Swift can do customer service, we can't for, I got 60 something thousand. It's like, so to me, it's like, so like, I'm blessed, like, putting a show on tour, like a show on sale and selling tickets is a scary thing. It's like, you can assume you have all the followers in the world, but there's some of the biggest single selling artists can't sell tickets to save their life. So like, and like, and if you're in radio, you know who we're talking about, because you don't book free radio shows. But that to me is like that customer interaction. And that's what it's the old adage, like, well, that's what we do differently. That, I mean, it's true. Like it's like, I have people come to my shows who wear shirts from like 5 years ago. I've written like 700 handwritten thank you notes this past year. Anybody who wants a shirt in the show, just write them a thank you note, why they called, thank you for listening. Like, that stuff matters. And I know most people hearing this won't do it. And that's why I'm going to like be okay. And like, it's because it's like that little thing. It's like, people remember how it's like, anytime you meet a celebrity, it's like, if they were awesome, you'll remember for the rest of your life. Like that stuff matters. So like for me, for 8-9 years here. Like I remember getting off the airplane when I landed here thinking like, fuck, if I can make it work a year, like if they don't fire me in a year, like I'll win enough people over, be fine. But it is like every single day, every DM, because it's like, it's no different when you leave a comment on somebody's page and they respond. It's a huge deal. Like it's a huge deal. Or a DM. Like even when the radio fan responded to my shit, I'm like, oh cool, they're not assholes. But it's legit though. It's just like you have the power to do that every single day with somebody and make their day. So why would you not do it?
Shocked actually that more radio stations and people don't do that, because you're absolutely right. Like I remember doing that super early on, like just through our station page, and people being so excited if I even just liked their photos.
If I send a company a message and y'all leave me on red, you can go fuck yourself.
Right.
Like, what are we doing? Like, what don't even read it then, fam. What are we doing?
Exactly. And those like little steps just help people build that community, and then they're supportive. That's why they show up to the shows, why they donate to things, why they buy the merch, why they, try the products that you're pushing. And I just it just seems so easy. It's just like making a friend online. Even with the radio fam, when I was first getting stickers or whatever, I was sending them out for free to people. It doesn't cost that much. And I figure, okay, get the stations, we give away this cash, essentially paying people to listen, when we could just spend a few cents here and there to mail people stickers during the pandemic. People love that shit. People love getting mail. We could do that for listeners, and they could connect with us. They'd share it on social media. Yeah. I don't see anybody doing shit like that,
No, I mean, I think I spent a couple $1,000s in t-shirts, which is what it is. It's going to last for life. But I think the one thing that I like, there's other radio pages, and like, I always prayed to the gods I would never be that guy, particularly on Facebook, who is like, radio isn't what it was in my day. And it's like, yeah, Jumbo Jim, because you guys are doing cocaine and like bringing in strippers. Yeah, we have rules now. Like we can't do what you idiots did because there's rules. And I think that it's just like the negative. I so legit because God, please don't make me one of them salty radio dudes. So that's why I was glad. I don't remember how I found y'all. Somebody must have shared something, and how it always works.
Oh yeah.
But like I remember reaching out to the page, like this. Thank you guys for being positive, because there's so many negative people, and like that's why I appreciate the page. And I think it's an important thing, because radio is a weird thing. It's being creative in general. You get stuck in your head, and then you follow that vicious cycle. It's like, this is the worst ever. And it's like, yeah, you can say in that, but it could be a lot worse than it is.
I appreciate that so much, because I looked at you too as like a bigger person. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I'll have time to like, come on, it's kind of celeb status.
No, I love doing this stuff. No, this is dope. You can go as far in this thing as you want. Like other politics, yeah, 100%. Like there are people who don't want me where I am, like reality. But like it's gonna be really hard to try to replace me, because I've built the following and I do so much stuff where, like we talked about before, it's like if radio ended today, I'll be okay. Like I'll figure it out. And that's just kind of like the reality of like, when I was emailing in Des Moines, like John Ivey, who is the head of CHR for iHeart, Tom Pullman, who's like the president of iHeart. I was emailing these guys every single month, like as a 20-year-old. And in my head, I'm like, even if they don't listen to this shit, like hopefully they'll remember my name. And I think there's so many people who are like, well, I don't want to be a bother. And it's like, fam, how many notifications do you get a day that you just miss? Like worst comes to worst, they know who you are.
Yes.
That's like there's no secret. It's just like I out hustled other people to get myself the opportunity, here to have myself riding my dog on as the point, which a listener painted, by the way. So
really? Oh, that's awesome.
This radio is like so people are like, you helped me get through stuff. I'm like, that's great. But also like, I have really shitty days too, where it's like, getting a text overnight to the station line or a DM is like made me not want to throw myself in a meat blender. Do you know what I mean? So like, I do think that's like the radio and listeners. It's a weird thing where it's like we both need each other, but we don't necessarily acknowledge as much as we should, because you just assume that they know. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like it's a weird thing. So I tried to say like for the show's podcast, like I always say, like, if you're listening to this and it like right now it's 10 a.m., but if you're hearing this at 5 p.m., text 99338 and we'll see it next day. And it was like crazy to get all these people texting in. Like it was emotional, like, holy shit. Like even if the ratings aren't where they should be because of pandemic, like, people are still listening to the show. Like it's a really cool thing where it's like that. And I respond to every single one of those texts and DMs. Like that's a huge thing where it's like, if somebody's going to take the time to reach out, you can't leave them hanging, because what if they don't do it ever again?
What you're doing is just modeling what shows what stations should be doing, you know, and I think that's why I feel that these personal brands and these shows, these things that people kind of are building on the side, I think are going to be the things that last longer than some of these radio stations, because they're just not getting it, you know?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And like, you know, it's like what Akon, God, he had a great quote on the Breakfast Club. It's like somebody bought his music catalog and he's something like, that's fine. You can buy the catalog, but you can't buy me.
Yeah.
You know, and there was like, I watched a lot of comedy documentaries and listened to comedy like interviews, and Nate Bargatze was talking to John Christ, and he was saying, I guess Ralphie May had a quote that like, because there's always that thought in comedy, people stealing jokes, and Ralphie May said like, yeah, you can take my water like from my well, but you don't have the source. Like you can steal, like rip up me off, but like, you don't have like the talent though. So that's only gonna get you so far. I think that's a huge thing. Like as long as you have that talent, like nobody can take that from you. You always will have it.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, the station needs you more than you need it. You know, I mean, like I get from a job perspective, but
no, but like that's a thing. Like it's not 1995 anymore, and I do think like that's like the problem I think that radio is going to have in the very near future. I think that I've said this to people in radio, it's like every class of radio has like their, it's about to get some dark shit, but has like their vice legitimately. Like in the 80s, it was like cocaine. In the 90s, it was alcohol. Now it's like antidepressants. And that's like some real shit where it's like, yeah, you know, I think there was that thought years ago where it's like, you know, you're in radio, you have no other talents, you need this. And it's like, no, it's not true. If you get pulled off the air, like, you still have a social following. You still have podcast following. Like it's not, and if you don't, like that's on you. But like that's how you make it so you can't just disappear into the night like old Jocksu. You know, I think it's if anything, it's a safety net.
Back in the day, when you were done, you're done. Now you like, it's almost impossible to get rid of you. If you have something to say, you can get on and say it somewhere.
And that goes back to with your following. It's like there's gonna be a day where you need those people. Where it's not you're gonna need those people to get that next gig, to like get that, like what you're going to need those people. And it's a pain in the ass in the sense of like Instagram comments are a pain in the ass to reply to. It's just like, you do like 10 and the app's like, whoa, what the hell's going on?
I know. I hate that.
It's the absolute worst. And like, but like that little stuff makes a difference. I think again, the Taylor Swift thing, it's like, I will talk about that letter forever. It took her, I mean, she clearly did not remember meeting me, obviously. But like that little thing is something that like nobody else has done. And she's the biggest star in the world. And like, so like, if I meet her again and she happens to not like be having the best day, I'm like, oh, well, she must be having a bad day because she wrote me a letter. It's like that little stuff matters. And like, you know, it's no surprise that the people in this business who are majorly successful the way they are. Like, I mean, look at Bobby. Bobby did every possible job, and Bobby did stuff before it was cool. Like people see Bobby now and like, well, yeah, but when Bobby, even like 5 years ago, people hated on Bobby.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like people hate on Bobby still. And I'm like, how the fuck can you hate on Bobby Bones?
I don't know.
Like, how? Like he did the work. You're like,
I'm like, he's one of us, you guys. What are you doing?
Yeah, no, and he's just such a cool dude. The radio has the group of like, they hate on people who try in school, where it's like, oh, you're trying, you're a loser. It's like, no, you fucking idiot, you're the loser.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, because there's just so much of that, and they just sit on the sidelines and they hate on the people that do actually make something for themselves and find a reason why they're doing something wrong. And it's like, no, they're doing it right. They're putting in the work. You know, they didn't get lucky. I mean, there's lucky situations that happen along the way, but they're also putting in the work.
Oh yeah, it's like, not to brush the dirt off my shoulders, but it's like luck. Like if you and I, not you Marie, but like to the hater, if you and I started on the same day in radio, I would still be further than you, because like I missed every single party. I missed all the fun stuff. I slept on the floor for a year, my dog eating tuna packets. Like it was like stealing ice cream sandwiches from like the freezer. Like it isn't by like chance. Did I want to do the podcast in the beginning? Not particularly. Did I want to do TV stuff at 10:30 after the show? Not really, but it's like I'm doing it, and like your lazy ass isn't going to, and then wonder like why I got my chances. Like you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Yep.
So bad.
It's true though. Say it.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Like I'm very confident in that sense. But I think I teeter on the edge of cocky, confident. I'm very confident. I'm not the most talented. The most talented people never make it. They just don't. Like it's the most talented people in every industry do not make it because they never had to work. Like when if it comes easy to you, you are fucked. because when something goes wrong, like, is Charlemagne the most talented person in radio? Probably not, but he's one of the hardest workers. And like, he's a people person and he does everything. He's outworked the most talented person a bazillion times to one. I think that's what most of this is like, you just gotta work and keep working because it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fun all the time. I get really riled up about radio sometimes because I sit back and like I try to stay out of shit and I just watch and I'm like, what are we doing, man? Like, we sold out a baseball stadium for the comedy tour. We're doing baseball stadium August 6th, which is my birthday. No big deal. But like, I wasn't like, I'm going to sell this out because I'm just going to put it on sale and wash my hands and it's going to sell. I'm like, I know it's going to sell out because the past 5 years I've met I've done something like 10,000 meet and greets over the past 5 years. Like, legit, like that's, we did the math. So like, and not just like, hey, thanks, bye, like legitimate conversation. So like, I know I have that. I know that I'm going to do every podcast, every publicity thing I can to do it. I know that I'm going to share it on all social media. I know that my team knows that I go bat for them. So they're going to go bat for me too. So like, I know all of that combined is going to be a success. And like, you have to have all that because you can't, it's like everybody's in that bar gig where you go there and the bar is like, yeah, we don't do any deals. We just open the doors and they're going to show up. You're like, well, no, they're not. Like, they're not though. It's the same with like radio. It's like, you have, and like anything, you have to like have your, tribe built so that they come support. So that's why, like, for me, it's like, I'm very confident in that stuff. Cause like I've put the work in with the following, with my coworkers and like with myself to where like it can't fail. I do feel like I owe it to pay it forward in respects to people where like I've had people again, like who did not need to help me out. And not that Shelby needed help. Like, Shelby is one of the most talented, like she is annoyingly talented. Like, Sauce is so advanced in her like abilities, like comically and on air. It's like, how I was drawn to her because she was an intern when she started working for free, driving an hour one way. And I was like, and then going to school and work. I'm like, fuck, like yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye and like, because that's one thing too. I think like at least I'm assuming other people in my position do, like I keep my eyes on like who's up and coming. Just like I know like roughly everything that's kind of happening, just because like if there's ever a chance or like like that's why I say if you see a job opening in All Access, that job's probably filled.
Yep.
But like the next one isn't. So that's why like you need to have your name in the conversation at all times. So with Sauce, like she's proven me right beyond my wildest dreams, which like is one of the most fun things for me. Like I said from day one, like this girl's going to be a star. Like somebody's going to take a chance on her. She's going to be a massive star. And I think for me, like I wouldn't be hosting a show if I didn't have her on the podcast. You know what I mean? So like with her success is like, it's been dope just to watch. And when she gets $1 million contract, I want 10%. We can talk for hours on the dynamic between male and female co-hosts, but I think that I have a whole philosophy on that and why there's douchebag. I mean, let me get to that first. Listen,
I want to know. I want to know.
I think that the problem with radio is that most of the old dudes who got in radio, and not all of them, if I'm friends with you, you're a nice person, got in radio because they were socially awkward and like radio was the escape and gave you a chance to be the cool guy without anybody knowing what you looked like. And then social media came around. And like you could see the older guy with the younger gal and she started getting more attention. And the old dude who was like joined radio to scorn that girl in high school that like the pretty girl could never get, started getting jealous and taking it out on her. Now, the problem is like for me, like that old dude's fucked it up for me, where it's like I feel like I try to tiptoe extra to be like, I have no interest in holding you back. But here's some things I think could help make the show better. So it's a weird dynamic of that stuff where it's like trying to undo 30 years of males being dickheads in radio. You know what I mean? Because I told the first day with Riley, who I do the show with, I'm like, I need you to be the biggest star ever. Like it does no good for me if we're a football team. I can't run the ball myself 4 times because we're gonna lose the game. It's like it's like you can be the idiot who wants to be the star, but Tom Brady is still the star of the Buccaneers. He's not. Is he the most talented player on the team? Probably not skill wise. Like he knows how to use the assets he has, and that's why he's a Hall of Famer. Like you can still be like the quarterback of a show and still get all the credit, but still hits your co-host for a touchdown and like be okay. And I think that's the thing where it's like maybe having the sports background and coaching too, where it's like, you got to use everybody to win the game. So
Yeah.
I don't get as butthurt over it as I think other hosts maybe have in the past, but it's wild to hear some stories where it's like, I've also think too, it's like, that like fear of like, oh, so I'm not going to plug somebody because what, they're better than me. It's like, okay, then they're better than me.
Right.
Or like, if you think somebody's stepping in your lane, it's like, yeah, be better than they are.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know. Like, okay, what do you
Mhm.
want to do? So that's kind of, it makes it harder. I think I can't imagine being a female in radio and then like coming to work for me and wondering, is he like everybody else or is he trying to help? And the reality is I'm trying to help because I need you to be successful, but I understand like why it's like, well, here it comes. And that's a dangerous thing with radio too, is like, you can't assume everybody's trying to fuck you up. Like there are some good people out there. I mean, don't trust everybody, but like not everybody's like trying to mess you up. I'd rather be in Wayne Manor, but like if Gotham needs me, like I'll be there. And that's kind of how I try to be like at the radio station and just in general. But now it's weird, like with the click stuff, it's like now that it's like my show, it's like I'm tasked with breaking it. It's a little bit weird because like the building isn't open yet, but it's like, the culture of the station falls ultimately in my hand, which is it's a weird thing. And that's a lot of things too. It's like you go to a station, like, yeah, you get to fix a culture that you had nothing to do with, but like, too bad, sir, madam. Like it's now yours, and you need to fix it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I think like, I think everybody who thinks being a boss is just like telling people what to do is had a boss they hated. You know what I mean? Like hosting the show is like, it is not like the joy I thought it would be. I mean that like seriousness. It's like, yeah, like it's great and it's fun, but it's like everything's on me. Like it's like I'm the one that gets called to meetings. If somebody doesn't like somebody, it's my fault to fix it. It's it's not like you just show up and then sit down at 6. Fam, I get there at 4:15.
Yeah.
But you sign up for that stuff though. So if that's something you want and like you want to have like your name on the show, like that's the other thing is like, I think with leadership in general and like with hosts and stuff, it's like the second people think the host isn't working as hard as somebody else, it's over. It's over. And that's like, we can go deep. I'm also a psychology guy. So like, humans are tribal culture, right? So the reason we start getting tribes like hundreds of years ago is like for food, shelter, and water. And we had a leader of the tribe who was supposed to protect us, and nobody would challenge the leader until the leaders started looking at themselves instead of the rest of the group, and the group didn't feel safe. And that's the same in the animal kingdom. It's the same in radio, where it's like, if you are a PD and your team doesn't feel like that you got their back, you have lost that locker room and you never come back. If you're a morning show host and you feel that same way, it's like the second somebody thinks they can come for your thrones because you made it seem like you're vulnerable. And like, if that happens, it's over.
Yep.
So that's why I get there at 4:15 and bust my ass. So that's like, it's clear that I'm putting in the work for it.
I love that like psychology stuff too. It's always interesting to me.
I mean, but it's true though. It's real shit where it's like they like ancient tribes, like the second their leader was not looking out for them. The book is that I read, it's called Leaders Eat Last. And that's my friend Buster he's on Q12 in Philly. He posted something like, everybody wants to be a leader until they see who eats last. And it's true.
It's
like
true.
Being the host of the show, I mean this, it's not fun in the sense of like, I don't have to do anything. It's like, I have to do the most. People's livelihoods depend on me. Like, you talk about a mental fuck where it's like people's mortgage payments, childcare, like that's all on my shoulders. Nobody, there's two certainly, but like it all starts with me. So it's like, it's a lot of responsibility. So it's like with this like gig, and I think you said perfectly in the podcast, like introducing this podcast, where it's like, find your situation, not your job. And so if that's something you want to roll with, like go for it. But like, there's a lot that comes with it. The wild thing about doing mornings, you realize how stupid the rating system is. Like you would think in 2021, like it'd be a science, and you find out that it's like one person can ruin your life. I mean, it is wild.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, especially because like we have these.
I know.
Like, if I talk about Taco Bell in my phone, I'm gonna get a Taco Bell ad on Instagram.
That is such a good point.
We can't have this tell what we're listening to. That makes sense.
That is such a good point. Like, I know.
It is what it is.
That is one of those things that just irritates me, or like the social media, like there's just so much to take into now to what makes your station popular or people worth listening to, that it's not just these. So that's just, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest problem is like, hopefully I don't come across as too negative. I'm very grateful for everything. I think it's just like, I tell this to managers all the time. It's like radio isn't what it was when you were on the air. Managing isn't what it was when your bosses were managers. It's just like everybody is spread too thin. And unfortunately, it's probably never going to change. So where it's like there really should be a social media department that's different than the web department, that's different than the video department. Like there really should be it's a multimedia platform. There just isn't. And like that's why I think it's like I think even sales, like there should be a digital sales department. I know there technically is, but like there should be an Instagram division, like that kind of stuff where we just don't have that. So it's like,
there could be so many jobs if there was.
Oh, for sure. 100%. And that's why it's hard. Like I try not to fault people who make the decisions because like they're doing probably the best they can. It's just like, it's not ideally set up at the moment.
I know. I feel like it has all the potential, and kind of when all the stuff is turning digital and all this, media and need for, your production and editing and all this stuff. I'm just like, wow, this is way more job opportunities now. It's going to take a little investing in that. But if you get those people going and you have these content machines coming out, these radio stations could be killing it.
I mean, I think Barstool Sports, I think, is the greatest example of what media companies should do, is they just have even like their radio studio, when they had it, I was like, this is better than anything I've seen. And they have a full staff video and they have a full staff, and like you need that to push. So I think I had a conversation with a higher up like a year ago. I'm like, it's not that nobody here doesn't want to put out as much content as possible. We just don't have a team. Like I could put out like all the video stuff our show, shout out to Hoodie and my show, does video stuff, like all the podcast stuff and all the comedy stuff. Like Sauce, I do that ourselves. Yeah. And like it's a decent amount. It could be a lot more if we had a staff, but like we just don't have that. I don't know how the hell you do it with the radio family. Jesus Christ.
I don't sleep.
Yeah. I mean, golly, like it's wild, but it's dope though.
Do you do any endorsements or I guess or sponsored things through the podcast? Like, do you pimp any like products or anything on it?
Not officially. I'm also too a believer of like holding out, selling out as long as you can. And like once you open that window, it's a very slippery slope. That's the same with like Instagram. If I post anything ad wise on Instagram, it's because I was told like we really need you to do this. It's not because I want to. So I try to hold out as much as you can, because I do think like, Gary Vee said like you have to do like 100 gives before you do one ask, and it's probably about that legitimately. So, but there's also too like radio people are so stupid sometimes, where it's just like we grew up with the Kardashians. Like you have that's the blueprint of how to talk about anything you want and have nobody realize it. Yes. You know what I mean? This sweatshirt is for my comedy tour. I wear a comedy merch in all the videos for the podcast. Like it's very easy to do without being like, here I am having some Sagamore rye whiskey.
And then people go, yep. And then people go, well, where did you get that sweatshirt?
And I see people wear it in public too. It's like, fuck,
I was going to ask, do you ever see it out in the wild?
Yeah. So like, Riley from our show was just out, at like a festival and stuff. Somebody wearing my man shirt, which is dope. And like, I see him at the shows all the time, which is dope too. But it is like, that's like the ultimate, like you've made enough of a difference that people want to rep your, I mean, that's when you wear a shirt or you're repping a brand. So like people are associated enough with that brand or they want to be associated with it that they wear it. So it's a very humbling thing. The comedy show is like seeing people wear shirts from like previous tours is just like, holy shit. Like that's like, I mean, that's, you can't top that. You know what I mean?
It's got to feel so good. And again, it's exactly like what radio stations should be doing. If people are connecting and they're proudly wearing those shirts, and not just wearing them to wash their cars, but they want to connect with your brand.
Oh yeah. And like, even like, with the comedy stuff, like I'd gone to a show prior to my show. I don't even know what the hell it was. And then it's like being excited to see a show. I'm like, fuck, like people are like this to see me. Like, it's a really weird, like, it's a very humbling thing where it's like people like got sitters and like plan their day route to come to this show to see me for an hour and then to wait an hour for a picture afterwards. It's like, where else could you have that with as limited talent as I have? I mean, like it's dope. It's like, it makes the not so great stuff worth it. Yeah,
exactly.
Funny thing about radio fam, like I know there's a bunch of horny ass single dudes who see like a woman share a story and go, let me click her info real quick just to see. And then like, hey, I'd love to hear your air check. Oh. I haven't done that for the record, but you say, who did?
I wonder. Oh no, I don't know. But like, I would guess that. Cause so I used to, when I was trying to when I was trying to push the stories at first before people would tag me in them, you know, so I would have to manually tag everybody. So I'd screen record video, put it into my story and tag everybody. So it was always fun when it was like a morning show and there's like 2 dudes, hot chick, and you can see who clicks the stick, or you can see how many times the stickers get clicked.
Oh, yeah.
The dudes are like 5, the chick it's like 45. You know?
Oh man, that's so funny. And that's why all like morning show dudes are insecure, except for me. But that's another topic for another day. But man, that's so funny.
All right. Well, we're friends now. So you got my number now, and hopefully
this is progressing very fast. I even followed the original radio fan page.
You know, your socials where people can find you, your website.
Yes. Find me everywhere, including OnlyFans. I have an OnlyFans page. That is a fact. You just search Intern John Radio. You can get the podcast as well at thoughtshower.com.
I love that. And are you for real? Because I know someone else on my podcast said
100%. Yes. Oh. And by the way, I did as a joke, but I had somebody on Instagram tell me that they know dudes who sell their feet pics for $700 a pop. And I'm like, okay, well, gonna see if that's true. And then like I will 100% sell my feet pics for $700. I appreciate you. Thank you for all you do too. And then hope to see you in Chicago.
Yeah. And thank you for all the love that you show and keep being awesome.
No, you keep being awesome and share my shit more. No,
I will absolutely.
Bye, Marie. Love you.
Bye.